Welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, where we bring you a weekly dose of powerlifting news, tips, and training advice with a touch of 80s rock ballads. This podcast is presented by Team Rohr Powerlifting, your source of the most comprehensive coaching and meet day preparation. Here are your hosts, Josh Rohr and Laura Sturm.
All right, welcome to episode 113. We are being left high and dry by Laura once again, but we're joined by the boys from South Georgia Barbell. We got Justin Little and Ian Smith, the guys that kind of founded the South Georgia Barbell powerlifting team. So guys, welcome to the episode here.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Appreciate it, man. Happy to be here.
I guess we'll start with this. If you guys want to give a little bit of your backgrounds, your bios, it can be as much or as little as you want. Basically, who are you guys and why are you involved in powerlifting? Justin, we'll start with you.
All right. So a little bit about me. I've grown up around and being in a weight room, played baseball, football, wrestling, rugby. So I've always kind of been in the weight room. My husband and a father just had my third child 10 days ago.
Congratulations, by the way.
So full house right now. I got involved with powerlifting with Ian and the owner of our gym, Matt Cannon, and we've just really just kind of been down here clanging and banging, doing our own thing. It wasn't really a powerlifting club, anywhere in our area. So, Ian and Matt, I'll let Ian speak to it, but they kind of got the ball rolling and built a club.
And kind of same as Justin. I mean, just grew up around sports, did football, track, wrestling, and started in the weight room when I was about 12. Actually, with the coach that taught me how to lift was kind of old powerlifting guy, so started cutting my teeth on powerlifting. And husband and a father. I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, 4-year-old daughter and 2-year-old son. And like Justin said, we kind of started the powerlifting thing just to have something to kind of keep that competitive edge going. We in our 30s, trying to have something just to, keep it interesting for us and to just find that get that competitive edge back and just have some fun. So.
Awesome. So you guys started the team around 2020-ish. Is that right?
Correct.
That's kind of right when COVID was kind of starting.
Yeah,
what was that like? First, let me ask it this way. What were you guys thinking?
Basically thinking, hey man, we love lifting weights, and Ian and I are both very competitive individuals. We like to compete against each other and other guys in our gym, and having a purpose behind training, right? Putting a date out there. We did a couple little garage total days and competing against other dudes, but then I was like, all right, well let's take this elsewhere. Maybe the pandemic's an odd time to start that, but it worked for us. It was right. It was our time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did. And being in South Georgia, we weren't we were careful with it, with it being right in the middle of COVID. I mean, we were careful with it, but we were not, a lot of places were kind of forced to shut down. I think just being in our location, we weren't necessarily forced to shut down. We were careful with it. We took precautions where we needed to, but I think that helped us to be able to go forward with it and just say, hey, if we're going to do it, let's do it. Because we didn't have any type of, lockdowns or restrictions really put on us.
Yeah. I was just making the joke. What were you thinking? Because a lot of people were, a lot of places were closing their doors, and you guys were starting a new club and everything. So I think, there's multiple ways to look at that. In a lot of respects, that's the perfect time to start because everybody else is, losing their mind or, being forced to close or whatever. So people are looking for places to go.
And really, South Georgia Barbell itself really kind of started right during that time of the pandemic. We started lifting in the garage of the owner's house. That's where we started out. So
yeah. That's awesome. I love places start like that. Even like Westside Barbell, if you read about them, they started in, basically a storage unit essentially, and, kind of grew from there. I actually trained down there a few times. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. I'm from Ohio originally, so I actually got to train with Louie and not a lot, but a few times. He was a cool guy. So you guys have run meets. You're a referee and meet director. You kind of just jumped in with both feet there. Again, what were you thinking?
I don't know, man. Maybe it's just part of my personality a little bit, but the owner, Matt, his background is in CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting. And this was just something that, the three of us sat down and we thought there was an opportunity to open the doors in our community to something a little bit different, right? We have the 24-hour fitness gyms and we have the CrossFit gyms or the boxes or whatever you want to call them, but there was not a true strength and conditioning gym in our area. And that's kind of the culture that we've built at South Georgia Barbell. Is we're not just powerlifting, we're not just Olympic weightlifting, we're not just functional fitness. We're really kind of a true blue old school strength and conditioning gym. And I got hooked up with the state chairs for USAPL Georgia, and they kind of said, hey, we don't have representation in your area. We would love for you guys to come on board. And they kind of laid out what the process was. And I kind of took the ball and ran with it a little bit. I mean, that's how I met you. You instructed the club coach course that I did. And we've coached different meets and we've had to drive 3-4 hours to go to meets. And it was like, you know what? There's a lot of strong people in South Georgia. Let's give them an outlet. Let's give them a place to not have to drive necessarily all the way to Jacksonville or Savannah or Atlanta. We've got some resources that we can rely on, and let's jump in this thing and represent South Georgia.
And I will say I appreciate that because, there for a while I was the only one running meets in Georgia, and people are always asking, hey, why don't you do one down in South Georgia? Why don't you do one here? Why don't you do one there? I'm like, look, I'm only one guy. And I'm glad other people are, instead of complaining about it, are actually just doing something about it. So I appreciate you guys for that.
You helped us get our first meet off the ground.
Yeah,
I mean, we couldn't have done it
without you.
So we appreciate it.
I think it's just, I guess the quote unquote paying it forward. You do it long enough, it's kind of just second nature, just when people are asking questions. So when somebody else is going to be wanting to run a meet for the first time, they're going to be asking questions to you guys, and you're just going to be like, oh yeah, it's just this, and it's just going to be second nature. So it's all paying it forward, man. No, it's all good. So Ian, you're also a referee, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
All right. So who was the referee first? You or Justin?
Hey, Justin. Yeah. Justin got it first.
Yeah.
And then I had intentions of doing it for a long time before I actually finally pulled the trigger and did the test and everything. But he beat me to it.
Yeah. So I just like to poke out little things like that when you guys said you're competitive with each other. So I'm like, who was first?
Right.
Let's not talk about who totaled more than who, though.
Yeah.
We can steer away from that.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
There you go. That's right.
So you guys have a meet coming up that you're hosting, the South Georgia Barbell Brawl. You guys want to talk about that a little bit? When and where that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're 10 days out from our second meet down here in Moultrie, Georgia. We're basically an hour and 10 minutes directly north of Tallahassee, Florida, not too far from the Florida line. Last year we had a 1-session 42 lifter meet. Man, it was so much fun. We had a really great turnout. We had a lot of really positive feedback from the lifters. We were pretty satisfied with how the meet went last year. We know there's always things we can do better. So this year we opened it up. We were granted 56 lifter cap. And so we reached that pretty quick. I think after about 2.5 months of the registration being open, it filled up.
Waiting list too.
Yeah, we had about a 40-person wait list. And so now we're running a 1-platform 2-session meet on Saturday, November the 5th. So we're pretty excited about that. We're, obviously in the short rows of getting the last few administrative things put together, to have that one ready to rock and roll.
Cool. So one of the things I want to talk about, I guess, was, where you guys stand on getting people involved on the, administrative side of lifting, meet directors, referees, spotters, loaders. Is that something you think that everybody should volunteer / get involved in some capacity? Or is that really just, we'll take people as they come, or what do you think? What are your opinions? You can ruffle feathers. It's okay.
Personally, I feel like if you've never volunteered at even if it's not a gym that you go to, but volunteer to either help outside of an official capacity or be on the platform as a spotter or loader or taking the time to get the referee certification, it's all going to pay off. There's so much about the actual day of the meet, all the behind the scenes stuff that as a lifter, I never noticed, right? You get there, you show up, you warm up, or you weigh in, you warm up, you compete, hopefully walk home with a little hardware and you're out of there, right? But you don't see the full spectrum of really what the sport is. And I'll tell you this, taking the referee test, that's a tough test. It's not easy, but it just provides a completely, totally different perspective that I don't think most lifters get. I mean, I've talked with guys. Look, I've lifted all throughout, being a teenager and an adult, but not knowing some of the niche rules or some of the way that things are handled in a meet. I would have never known those things. I would have thought that I knew them all, but you don't really know truly what the rules are, really, I think, until you dig into the rule book. And then you get tested on it and you figure out that some things that you thought passed or passable actions or, whatever aren't passable. And there's just so much to that aspect that I think lifters would benefit from. And I'd love to see more lifters take that chance to take the ref test and get it and give back. We have a robust, group of meet directors, right, that are really kind of standing on your shoulders and the shoulders of other people in USAPL Georgia that, are really striving to put together bigger and better meets. But we're running into instances where you can only ask, an individual so many times to drive 4 hours and, out of their own pocket, or even if they are, getting a stipend, like give up an entire weekend to come help run your meet, because a meet director can't do it by themselves. Even Ian and I, when we do it together, we can't run the whole show, just the two of us. Right. And so I really feel like, you're struggling, or we're struggling, especially trying to pull guys out of Atlanta. Right. This is a weekend, big game going on in Athens, a lot of sports in North Florida, and we're running into schedule conflicts, and maybe that's our own fault. But I feel like if more lifters would take the chance or take the opportunity to become a ref, you have a bigger pool to choose from, but you're also educating these guys that are probably likely coaching other athletes in their gym, just like we are. And once you take that test and you learn some of those rules maybe that you didn't know about, you kind of approach the sport a little bit differently, right? We have a lot of young guys that want to PR on the platform every single lift every time, and we're trying to tell them that PR on a single lift is great, but really what we're worried about is PR on a total. And when you sit back and you're looking at the math behind the scenes after the meet's over, and you're like looking at particular instances or whatever, you're like, man, if this person had kind of paid attention to the scoring board a little bit, they might would have saw that 2.5 kilo jump here that could have put them in first place if they're not watching it. And I feel like I really gained some knowledge behind how to read lift and cast and read the board by being a ref and being involved by being the scoring manager, typing that stuff into the computer and watching that kind of stuff. But at least that's just my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, kind of on the same note, I mean, the directing of the meet and the refereeing, I mean, that's not necessarily the sexy side of powerlifting. Everybody wants to get out there and lift the weights, but really and truly, I mean, if you will take the time to go through that referee test, to go kind of learn the ins and outs of these things, it's going to make you a better lifter. I mean, that's one thing I did when I took that referee test, and the few times that I've refereed, it's given me a different perspective kind of on the lifting, and I think it's made me a better lifter because I truly understand. My first competition, I went in there, I know, really know what in the hell I was really doing. I just had to pick some weight up. I had to put some weight on my back. But having to gone through all that with the referee test and seeing how meets are run and all the ins and outs, it definitely gives you a lot more perspective. And honestly, it kind of gives you it just gives you a better understanding. So I think now that when I lift, like I can honestly, I pretty much know if I'm going to get red lighted now. Whereas before I was pissed when I got a red light, but now it's like, all right, well, I felt, what I did wrong now, because I know what they're looking at, I know what they're seeing.
Yeah,
I think it's made me a better lifter for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is like once you know what you're looking for as a ref, then you can feel it in your own training. Just like Ian said, I've had a couple of instances as a coach where like coaching somebody on the platform, and I've had the referee kind of look at me, and like I saw what I saw, you know what I mean, and but as a referee, when you see that look in that referee's eyes and you're like, oh, I think they either saw, something wasn't 100% right. You're also like seeing that too, because you've sat in that chair and you've had to judge those lifts, which honestly, that might be the hardest thing about powerlifting is being a consistent referee, especially when you're looking at athletes that you've never seen before. So you don't know what their range of motion are. You don't know, you don't watch, these guys in training all the time. And so, to me, that might be one of the hardest jobs in powerlifting is being a consistent referee.
Yeah. And I think that may be part of it. Well, some people are I think, people are intimidated by it because, you're going to get bitched at by somebody anytime you ref. It's going to happen. And, rightfully so. They're sticking up for their athlete. I get it. That's what they're going to do. But I don't think people want to have to deal with that, and like you said, you got to go with, you've got, the rules, but you've got a split second to make your decision on what you feel like you saw, and that can be intimidating. You don't want to be the, you don't want to be the second red light on a guy's state record attempt. Nobody wants to do that. But I think it's important for the sport. If we want the sport to continue,
right,
we got to have people step up and be willing to be that guy that gives that second red light.
And I think too, there's something to be said about, getting a better perspective. So what I found is the coaches and the athletes that are state referees, they're not the ones going over and bitching at the referees. Like they know how to communicate to them and they can ask their questions. They can disagree, but they do it respectfully. And I think that, that's a big deal for exactly what you said. Like people don't want to be bitched at. I don't want to get my ass chewed when I'm sitting in a referee chair volunteering my time. Like there's other things I could be doing that doesn't involve getting yelled at.
I think a lot of times too, people don't realize is that the meet doesn't stop, right? The second that the bar gets loaded and the next lifter gets their call for bars loaded, like you don't have a long window to argue, whether or not one, you really shouldn't argue because it's going to be what it's going to be. I've never seen a referee go back and change because of an argument, right, with a coach. But two, also part of the ref test is looking at, knowing what qualifies as a blue or a yellow light. And a lot of times as a coach, if you're a ref and you know what those lights mean, and if you truly know your athlete and you're being honest, you see a blue go up or you see a yellow go up, you know what the ref saw, honestly. And then you don't have to try to slow the meet down or try to get into a lengthy discussion with a referee in between lifters going. That'll derail if you're coaching or handling somebody. That'll derail you in a heartbeat.
So what's the answer, I guess? How do we get, so here's my thing. I always tell people when they're like on the fence about becoming a ref, they're like, well, I don't want to be, stuck refereeing all the time and everything. Well, you don't have to, like, just because you have the ref credentials doesn't mean you have to ref at every single meet, but it gives more options for meet directors. The meet this weekend, for example, there's a bench only competition on Saturday. I'm coaching, but I'm also going to help with weigh-ins and help with drug testing. So because I can do those things because I'm a referee, but that doesn't mean that I have to give up my job or my hat as coach. It just gives the meet directors another option. Okay, before the meet starts, I can work. And as soon as the meet's done, I can work a little bit and just kind of fill some of those gaps. And especially with multiple session meets where there's a second weigh-in, people don't think about that is when you got two sessions, you got three referees on the platform. You have one or two referees probably doing starting drug testing for session one. And then you got one or two referees doing equipment check and one or two referees doing weigh-ins for the next session. That's a lot of people. And that doesn't mean that all of them are in the chair all day. That just means that, we need those bodies to work those different positions in different, periods of time. And the more people we can have that are qualified to do that, the easier it is to make that work.
Yeah, I don't think lifters sometimes see, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but I feel like they don't see the need, that how that becomes such a crucial need, right? That transition time between, your first, second, and your second session as a meet director is going to be literally the moment that'll make or break a meet, right? Because you get your weigh-ins thrown off, or your check-ins go wrong, or you don't have somebody to do your drug test. Like, that's where I feel like a meet can get derailed, doesn't start on time, gets people in a bad mood, because if they've already started their warm-ups and somebody walks back there and says, hey, we're starting 30 minutes later than normal, it throws a kink in it. And even if folks just volunteered for that 30-minute time block or 45-minute time block or hour and a half for weigh-ins, right? Like, how much easier that becomes for that meet to flow a little bit better. You make that transition from 1 to 2. Or if you've got, even if I couldn't imagine trying to run one with multiple platforms and multiple sessions on the same day. I mean, that just, with a limited number of reps, you're just asking for disaster to take place. If you haven't truly covered all your bases and kind of almost literally overstaffed the meet just a little bit, just to have those extra hands on deck if you need them.
Yeah. And you asked like kind of like what's the answer? I mean, this would be kind of be, I think, an overhaul of kind of USAPL as a whole, possibly. But I mean, if there's a way where you kind of ease people into it and say, all right, they take a test or they go through something to where they're certified to do, they may not be able to sit in the ref chair, but they can be certified to do weigh-ins and equipment check. They could be certified to do the drug testing, every aspect that goes into running a meet, have separate certifications for that to kind of ease people into helping to volunteer for those types of things. That would kind of need to probably overhaul USAPL as a whole. But I mean, if we're really hurting for people and we need people to do things, I mean, I think that's something that we would probably need to look at. So.
I'm of the opinion too, because our gym we host, you saw local level, you saw meets, and it's a little bit more relaxed. Like, it's not as structured, I guess, so to speak, where those local level meets are really trying to grow the sport, right? And that doesn't mean you sacrifice the call on the platform, but there's a little bit more, like, you go to a USAW national meet and it's the standards, like, right, it's whatever the rule book says. But that local level, not that they're fudging the standards, but you're able to pull, so to speak, really kind of from your, maybe your local gym or other gyms in your community, where you don't necessarily have to have like the official stamp as a full-blooded referee. Of course you have to do your safe sport stuff where it applies, but having people that aren't, like Ian was saying, that might not have the full stamp of sitting in the chair and making the call, but finding a way to grow the sport by easing people into it. That was something, we've talked about a lot, as we wish we would see USAPL look for ways, at least at the local level, to make it a little more, I guess, a little easier to run a meet and not have to be, to the level of a national meet. Like, I get the what I would assume the idea behind it is that no matter what level of USAPL meet you go to, the standard's always the same. But for us, we're kind of on an island a little bit. We're drawing people, like this week, next weekend, we're drawing people out of Kennesaw and Savannah and Atlanta, and we're having to draw these people from 4 hours away just to come help us get the meet off the ground. Our gym is more than capable of putting on a meet, but because not everybody has all the qualifications that USAPL requires, we're handcuffed, and we're having to reach out. And I'm talking to referees that have already refereed 6 or 7 meets this year, and they're starting to feel burnout, or they're looking for opportunities to compete too. And so it just becomes difficult, because it's like, man, I really actually would have rather competed at your meet and not worked your meet. But then we have to have that conversation, like, hey, I really need this to get this off the ground. Like, I'm struggling right now. We're hoping that we can still try to find 1 or 2 more referees that are willing to make the trip down, so we can talk, have that flexibility with our referee staff to make that transition. Otherwise, we're going to be running a pretty thin referee roster.
Yeah, and I guess just for sake of conversation, I'll disagree with both of you on the stance of making a lower barrier of entry for referees and things like that. But I think that has happened in other organizations, and that's why they're kind of a joke to some degree in some aspects now, because the level of consistency, and you're seeing squats that are 3 inches high that are being called good. And, now you got skewed state records because, well, are you going to judge this lifter harder because they're breaking a state record? Well, then in the head-to-head competition, are you giving an unfair advantage to the lifter not breaking a state record squat because you're judging them normal, but then judging them more fair, the person breaking the record? So I just think that as a whole, yeah, it's a pretty high standard that we, ask of our referees and everything, but it also makes for a very consistent, very quality product that you go to any USA powerlifting event, you're going to know what you're going to get. A lot of people have even commented to me before, like, well, why do we need national referees at a national meet? Why can't we just use state referees? And they're asking it from a point of it's a different level of judging, and it's not. Like the standard is still the same. The only difference is the referees are more experienced and have a higher level of qualifications, so that they're, I hate to say more observant, or, they just have a finer tooth comb to look at things through. That's not the right analogy. Whatever, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, we got it.
I don't think you should ever sacrifice. I don't think you should ever sacrifice the quality or the standard that USAPL has as far as when it comes to judging the lift on the platform. But when it comes to who can be involved in helping, whether it's weigh-ins, check-ins, or drug tests, to me, that's where I see an opportunity, for that, like Ian was talking about, taking a, online weigh-in certification, right? So somebody in our gym that wants to help out, is not competing, can sit, watch this informational video, understand what the weight classes are and all the rules around weighing in, right? And then they can be certified to just do weigh-ins. And then, or someone could be certified to handle the drug test or somebody can take the equipment check, course or whatever, but break it out in those aspects. But I mean, I totally agree with you on we should never sacrifice the quality or the standard of the lift on the platform. I'm not arguing with that at all. But when it comes to who can do what in running the meet, you're left with your gym members, unless they go get ref certified. Your gym members can sell concessions, sell merch, and collect, an entry fee if there's an entry fee, or they can spot and load. But that's really only half the battle. The other half of the battle is the check-in, the weigh-ins, and the drug testing.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I guess my follow-up question is the state referee exam as is that daunting that it does deter people? Like, would people more be likely to take a drug testing certification course so that they can just do drug testing? Or would they be like, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well just take the whole thing and I can just work whatever parts I need to?
I think it is. I mean, it is a little daunting because, when you're about to take it, they tell you to really, really study because I think it's something like most people got to take it 2 or 3 times before they even pass the computer part of it, So, I think when people hear that and know that, then I think that does become daunting to people because it's, a lot of, people our age, it's like, well, hell yeah, I've been graduated from college for, 14 years. I don't want to have to study anymore. I'm done with my studying. I don't want to have to do that. It is a long test. And and it's you have to be on your game. You got to read every question. It's detailed. There's some questions, and I get it. Going back to what you said about the standard. There's some questions in there that are designed to trip you up. You really got to read them carefully. So I think it is daunting if you just hear about it. Once you sit down and look at the test, if you have lifted before and you have been involved somewhat within, USAPL, you're going to get a lot of the questions if you have competed, or if you've at least watched, USAPL meet and have observed and asked questions. You're going to get a lot of those questions right. But it would just hearing about the test is kind of daunting, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like, and I don't know, maybe I'm completely wrong or off base on this, but I feel like it's easier to talk to somebody and say, hey, look, we're gonna try to host meets once or twice a year in our gym. Would love for you to just sit down, watch this video, or take this 30-minute little class about weigh-ins. right? Somebody that has no interest whatsoever, or really have it like, we have lifters in our gym that never competed powerlifting a day in their life, but they want to help the gym, right? They want the gym to succeed, and they're all hands on deck. It's like, what can I do? Well, when somebody that's not, ref certified comes to you and say, well, what can I do? You're really, I'm kind of back to this, what I just said a minute ago. You're back to, you can either collect an entry fee or you can spot and load, you know what I mean? And it kind of like, well, once you get a handful of spotters and loaders, and you get a couple of people that are collecting entry fees or, making sure the gym stays organized or whatever, you're still left with a lot of people, at least in our instance, they're like, hey, I want to help. How can I help? And it's like, you can't, I need you to go study, take this exam or study, take this exam, do these things and line up your practical. And it just becomes a scenario where somebody that wants to help a month out from the meet happening doesn't have time to take the test, go sit for the practical, get all their information back, and then be on the roster. Right. That's something we're working on. Right. We're getting several of our members certified that compete, so they can help, or we're putting some of our kind of more administratively talented gym members helping out in other areas, but you really kind of cut your pool down to the list of 30 referees, right? In the month of October for USAPL, it's a big month. I think there was 4 meets plus our meet, makes 5. There's a holiday there's a lot of meets going on. You got 30 referees that are active, and you're pulling from the same pool. So it would just be, I don't know, maybe it's a pie in the sky or a pipe dream to ask for some sort of leniency when it comes to certain jobs, when it comes to running a meet. I don't want to sit here and just sound like, I'm just beating up on the process, because I get it. But this is just stuff we talk about and throw around. We wish we would see this change or that change. But
and some of that opinion could come just from our location. Us being, kind of where we are, we're 4 hours away from majority of the referees in Georgia, at least I think.
There's 2 in Tallahassee,
right?
And then that we pull from, and most everybody else is a 3-hour drive. But also feel like we've just sat here for 20 minutes and just whined and complained about.
Yeah, well, I wanted to let you go because I'm gonna circle back here. You guys, I think those are ideas. Like, those are valid ideas, and I asked for a solution and then proceeded to argue against everything you said because I wanted to hear you make your case. That was on purpose.
Oh yeah. No, I just don't want it to seem like, all right, well, they've interviewed the South Georgia Barbell guys, and all they did was want to complain about
the South Georgia Barbell guys. That's just a bunch of grumpy old men down there. Get off my lawn.
Look, we love the sport. We love USAPL, and we're doing what we can to be a part of it. But when you ask,
here's my thing: if you guys aren't doing shit down there and you're bitching and complaining, I don't want to hear it. But you guys are your referee, your meet directors, you're making it happen, and like, we need to be able to express ideas and thoughts, and this is a valid issue that you guys are having. So I think there's some validity to that, and I'll run it up the chain and actually just kind of see what we can maybe do with that. But I know, like, so just for the weigh-in standpoint, like, I do know I have to double check the rule book to make sure that's still the case. But like 10 years ago, well, maybe I'm 15 years ago, I guess, maybe now, there weren't a lot of female lifters, or there weren't a lot of female referees. So when you had somebody to do female weigh-ins, you didn't always have a female ref available. So there was language in the rule book that allowed you to use a proxy, somebody that wasn't a referee, to do weigh-ins. So I don't know if that language is still in there or not. If it is, then that could potentially be loosely interpreted to mean just short of ref in general. Same thing with drug testing. You could have a non-referee actually do the sample collection. That was also before Safe Sport and some of those things. So I'm sure that's not exactly the case now.
Yeah, I think like Ian said, like, if we were more in the metro Atlanta area, right, where it's a 30, 45-minute drive versus 4 hours, like, maybe that attitude probably changes for us. You know what I mean? But just being like, just geographically where we're at, and being a new club in this area, that's probably the biggest issue we fight when it comes from a meet directing aspect. And all the guys and gals that have refereed for us in the past and are refereeing for us this time, they're a couple of them are meet directors, and so they're and they're coaches. And so they're wearing multiple hats. But I would just love to see some of these other lifters that are, or coaches that are constantly at all of the state meets. I'd really love to challenge them to go sit for the ref test, and then would love to see them, reffing sessions one day.
So what is your opinion of people that refuse to become a ref? Like, how low on the totem pole are they, in your opinion?
I mean,
that's a loaded question.
It is. I mean, I would just want to sit down with them and ask them why. Like what's holding them back from doing it? I mean, is it, because I mean, like you said, I mean, you can say no. I mean, yeah, you're going to get asked, but I mean, you can say no. I mean, I've been asked, I hate to say it, but I've been asked twice and I've had to say no because, I've had stuff with my kids that I've already had planned that weekend, and hopefully, if I get asked again, I'll be able to do it because, it's something I want to continue to do. But, if people are just adamantly against it for some reason, if they're competing, but for some reason adamantly against it, I would want to, like I said, just have a discussion with them and just ask them why, what's the reason for it. If it's daunting for them, then you sit down and tell them, look, it's really not that bad. You've competed enough. You got an idea of what's going on.
Yeah. You're
good to go. If they just, if there's a straight asshole about it and don't want to do it, I mean, that's a different kind of conversation, And
there's going to be some of those, but I don't know the answer either. And I genuinely think that it's probably just lack of awareness that that's even a need, or that that's even an avenue that people can take. When I started lifting and competing, like, it was never even on my radar to be a referee or to volunteer. Like, I just assumed that those were like professional staff, that was their full-time job. Like, it was kind of, looking back, kind of stupid. Right. But, this is a volunteer sport. And I just think a lot of people maybe just don't realize. So I think having these kind of conversations and, hopefully somebody listens somewhere and kind of has a light bulb go off. But yeah. And the other thing is, like, in terms of saying no, like, I mean, I had to tell you guys I couldn't come, but if, like, it's hard for me to say no, but if I'm one of 20 referees in Georgia and I have to tell you no, that's kind of hard because there's not that many. But if I'm one of 150 referees in Georgia, okay, well, I don't feel so bad saying no because I know there's a whole bunch more people you can ask. And I think that's another reason that, the more referees we have, the easier it is on everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely didn't realize when we first jumped into this kind of whole hog, I think I had the same impression you did. I was like, man, these guys must just travel around and this is what they do for a living. They're paid on staff by USA Powerlifting to get these credentials. And, they're heavily incentivized to go and volunteer, to give up their time. And that's not the case. In a lot of cases, these are, weekend warriors or hobby, enthusiasts, which, is what we are. We both, this isn't what we do for a living. We love the sport and we love empowering other people and coaching other people and competing ourselves. And so this is just a little side gig, but at the same time, I mean, that's probably the case for, I would imagine, damn near everybody at the local state level, that, it's not a professional traveling staff that goes around meet to meet. These are people that are giving up days and hours and weeks and travel time, on their own dime in a lot of cases to go and ensure that a lifter that's been training their ass off has the opportunity to go and compete, and I don't know how much that message gets pushed out. I know there's several people that definitely have a voice and they speak out about that and they encourage people to do it. But, I don't know how often it's like, hey, listen, there's only X number of referees in this state or even in this area, and they've been worked heavily, over a period of time. And, it would be great to bring in more people just to have, like you said, have that pool of 150 people to call on versus trying to call the same 10, 15 people every other weekend for a meet.
Yeah. You guys have actually given me some ideas. I think that's potentially a video we need to put together too, that can just be email blasted out to the entire membership. Here's how you become a state referee. Here's why it would benefit your state as a whole. Here's how it benefits you as a lifter. Like, just things like that, because I don't think people do hear that. And, the few that do, I think for the most part do end up becoming a referee. But my gut is most people just aren't exposed to that or haven't thought about it. So, maybe again, that's on us to do a better job of, reaching the masses with the message of becoming a referee. Anyway, we've been ranting about that for a minute now. So let's shift back a little bit to kind of you guys, the club. You guys are a USA Powerlifting registered club. Do you want to talk about a little bit, some of the athletes you guys coach, some of those things? You don't have to be specific. You can be as specific or not as you want, but I'm just kind of, anybody that's kind of in the Moultrie area, what do they get if they come to South Georgia Barbell and link up with you guys?
Yeah. So from the gym's offering perspective, right? Like I said earlier, we're predominantly a strength and conditioning gym that offers, just various ways to meet your strength and conditioning goals. Our team right now, that actively competes or, competes multiple times. It's kind of small. We probably got really about a 5 or 6 person team. We've actually got a young man. He's 14. He was 13 back in February when he stepped on the stage for states, and he swept the American record on every lift in total in his age and weight class. And we're going to get our first taste of a national event in March. Ian and I are going to go coach him at high school Nats. We're really excited. Neither one of us have been to a USAPL national event. We've been to several USAL national events, and so this will be our first powerlifting national. We're excited about that and kind of see kind of where he ranks on a national level. So he's one we're really proud of. This young man comes in and he puts his head down and he works every day, and he's really drawn to strength sports. And I don't know, you may want to that's our big stud in the stalls kind of a deal. But I mean, a lot of the people that lift with us are their moms or dads or aunts and uncles, and they work full-time jobs, and they love feeling strong. And we really have tried hard to cultivate an environment that really feeds into that. We kind of have our gym segmented in basically kind of 3 different parts. In a physical sense, we kind of have a training hall for our Olympic weightlifters, and then we have a functional fitness area, and then we kind of call it the dark corner for powerlifting, where it's basically the clang and bang section. Old school iron weights, rusty barbells, and we just get after it from we don't have combo racks, and we don't have all the latest and greatest cable or plyometric equipment. We're just we take an old school linear periodization approach to things. If you lifted it last week, let's add 5 pounds to it and do it again. Just very simple, straightforward programming, where we program for these athletes on a weekly or daily basis, depending on what their needs are. And we try to with some of our younger guys, we try to make sure that the goals they want are realistic and attainable. And then for some of our more mature athletes, we're trying to enable them just to be strong in life, not necessarily to expect them to step on a world stage at some point to be this just top tier athlete. But I mean, these are moms and dads in the community that just strength is a part of their life, and they're trying to ingrain that into their children. And so that's just that's kind of what we do. We try to create an environment to get people strong.
Kind of that same note, I mean, something else people will find down here, I mean, our gym community, I think, is something that's a big point of pride for us. Kind of like Justin was saying, I mean, we kind of have 3 kind of different arms to South Georgia Barbell. We got the Olympic weightlifting part, we got the functional fitness part, and then powerlifting part. But man, all 3 arms just encourage the hell out of each other, no matter what you're doing. And all 3 arms really understand what each one's trying to do too. I mean, the Olympic lifters understand powerlifters understand the Olympic side of it. We all kind of jump in the CrossFit a little bit every now and then, just make things interesting.
Whoa.
Hey, man, you got to do burpees at least once a year, to keep it fresh.
I don't know. I don't know. Burpees and I don't get along too well.
I'm telling you, man. No, I'm telling you. But that's something down here, I mean, really, that I just absolutely love about our gym in this place, is, if you're over here in the powerlifting corner and you're going for a PR deadlift, I mean, everybody that's in there is going to come over and cheer you on, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's one thing's great about it. And kind of, I think from our perspective, that's what we were talking about earlier, is if we're putting on a meet, I mean, our people here want to help and they want to do more than just sell concessions. I mean, because they understand the sport, they understand the work that goes into it, because they see their, the people that they live with, they see the, people they go to the gym with, they see them working it, and they want to give them that best experience that they can.
Awesome. I got one final question for you guys. Open-ended kind of, but more for my own knowledge, I guess. So Justin, you got 3 kids now. Ian, you got 2. How do you guys balance being a dad and gym and competing and coaching and all of those things?
You don't get very much sleep.
Yeah. It's a
don't get very much sleep. Yeah. I usually get here to the gym about 4:45 in the morning. That's about the only time I can really get it in. I try to be here 4 days a week. Most weeks it ends up being 3 because I got to sleep at some point, with my kids. But as far as that balance, I mean, that's the only way I can get it in, is in the morning while the kids are still asleep, because once they wake up, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. We do have like a little kitty cage, it's what we call it at the gym, where when we moved into this space that we're in, we've been in this space almost 2 years now. We knew we had to carve out a spot. Most of the people that come and work out here, they're parents, right? They have younger kids, or they have middle school kids or whatever. And we try to get those kids that are in middle school, involved in some sort of something, so they're not just stuck, with the, like kids that are mine his age, our kids that are young, but, we try to get them involved. And, the biggest thing, like my son competed in his first Olympic weightlifting meet last month. Right. And so that was one way to balance it. One way to kind of justify spending time here in the gym was to take my oldest, who's 6, and say, listen, like, we're going to go work out together, and you're going to work out while dad works out. Right. So while I'm squatting, he's got a PVC pipe and we're going over, drilling snatch, or we're going over clean and jerk, or we're talking about what does it look like to back squat or deadlift, all the, trying to drill technique. And so the balance there, at least for me, my kids, my oldest is older than Ian's 2, is getting him involved and letting him sweat right beside me. And I think that's something that enables me to one, spend time with them. And they, it's one thing for them to know that, like, oh, well, daddy's a coach and this, that, and the other. Right. But it's another when they're like, oh, daddy works out. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big thing for them to understand that, strength and conditioning is a big part of who I am. And so for my kids to see that, or to hear about it, is one thing, but to be a part of it and to be kind of brought into the fold, right, and get under the wing. Josh, I'll tell you this, like when my son competed last month, like our gym family, like you could have heard a pin drop. There's 100 people in there, not anybody saying it. In the second he got 3 white lights on his first lift, you'd have thought he'd hit the lottery, man. The kid was ready to just jump through the roof. Awesome. The gym was going wild. And I just think the best way to balance that is to get the kids involved, at the age that they're ready, that they can understand, like, okay, for 20 minutes, we're going to drill this one thing, and you just got to make it fun for them. You can't, I can be such an overly critical person to myself that I have to make sure that with a 6-year-old, that if it doesn't look perfect every time, that's just the nature of being 6, right? And learning body awareness and learning what I mean when I say, hey, shift your weight back on your heels, or make sure you're not doing this or doing that, and then also, both of our wives are involved too. So it's not one of those things where, somebody's upset that we're at the gym, because they get it, right? They're also have their own fitness goals that are aligned with the gym. And so it's a family affair, is the only way I feel like either one of us has made this work.
100%.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing is, my wife needs to start powerlifting.
Yeah, absolutely.
It might help out. It might help.
Justin and Ian said
that'll hold no weight with her, but yeah, absolutely, go for
it. So funny enough, my wife actually has competed. She competed in college with us back in 2004, I believe, and then when she moved to Georgia, she competed again at the 2012 state meet. But she's officially retired for the second time, she says. So she's done.
Well, you can still train though.
Yeah, you can always come out of retirement. So.
Yeah, that's what I say. I'm still trying, but as long as you guys got my back, I'll bring it up again.
There you go.
Yeah, man.
We got
Always.
you, man.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you guys being on. Like I said, I want to start having people on, the podcast that I really respect what they're doing and they're really bringing value to the sport. And I think you guys are doing that, running meets, becoming a referee, really encouraging people to get involved and, introducing people to the sport as a whole, even if it's, just getting them into the gym and, showing them how to train. So I think you guys are doing really cool things down there and I really appreciate you guys. And where can social media wise, where can people follow you guys and the gym?
Yeah. So on Facebook, the gym as a whole has its own South Georgia Barbell page. So Facebook, Instagram, at South Georgia Barbell. And then if you're interested in our powerlifting aspect of the gym, we're at SGB Powerlifting.
What about individually? Do you guys have individual social medias or not? Or is that confidential?
No, I do. I don't post anything, but I mean, I have it. I mostly just reshare stuff from the powerlifting page or the gym page. That's pretty much all I post. But it's if you want to, it's at SmithyN64.
And you want to see pictures of what I'm grilling out on the weekend, or if I'm up here training or whatever, it's at Papa Moose 8815.
So I definitely follow the grilling out posts that you do.
Yeah, man. Look, there's a fine line between working out and also enjoying what you eat. So
yep. Cool. All right, guys. Well, is there anything else you guys want to touch on while we're here? Or?
No, just really want to thank you for shining a light on us. We're down here, we're grinding, we're trying to get after it, we're trying to grow. So we appreciate you having us on and hearing us out, listening to us whine a little bit. But we just appreciate everything you've done for us from the coaching certification to helping us with our first meet and always taking your feedback. When you see things, you've got some experienced eyes, and so we just appreciate any feedback you see and trying to. Like you said, you're in the position where you're paying it forward, and we're in the position where we're trying to grow so we can also pay it forward one day. So,
yeah, man, we just appreciate you kind of shining a little light on us. That's part of the reason we want to start the club is, when you looked at that USAPL gym map, there was pretty much nothing
south of
Macon. And you had one little spot over in Savannah and then pretty much nothing down there. So that was kind of another big motivation for us to get the club started. So we appreciate you just kind of highlighting it a little bit for us, man.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one more thing I forgot. We do a powerlifting situation every week, and I forgot to do that. So I'm going to have you guys answer this. Here's the situation for this week. A few resistance bands have gone missing over the last few months from the gym. Someone shows you a video of one of your training partners putting the bands into their bag and leaving. How do you handle it?
Give us our damn bands back, man.
This is a softball.
Yeah, that's how
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's unless you're clearing that with the owner, right, man? If it's not yours, that's why I teach my 6-year-old. If it's not yours, don't touch it.
Yeah, I gave you guys kind of an easy one there.
Yeah.
I think we all agree.
Exactly. Yeah.
Give me the damn bands back.
Yeah.
Won't ever do that again.
You do throw some doozies out there every now and then, man.
Yeah. I couldn't think of anything this week, so you guys got kind of an easy one.
All right, there we go.
You have to come back on later on, and I'll come up with a good one for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought you were really going to test the depth of the referee knowledge there.
Yeah, if I would have been thinking, or if I would have actually prepared. See, full disclosure, I don't really prepare for these. We just kind of wing it, and you get what you get.
I like it, man. I like it.
Yeah. So no, I appreciate you guys coming on. And like I said, we'd love to have you back on at some point. And you guys are doing great things down there. Keep going. And if there's ever anything that we can do to help, definitely let us know.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Josh. Thank you.
All right. You guys have a good one.
Amen.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode of the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends.